when we can focus on little things in our lives that bring us joy, when we can focus on those, like the breeze in the trees. I always look for the breeze in the trees. It always makes me, like wind, by the way, for whatever reason, like it's so mind-blowing to me. Like I don't understand it. I don't understand where wind comes from. It just comes, right? There's no start point, there's no end point. It's just there, and I love it. And so I'll just sit there and I'll look at the breeze in the trees, and I'll just be like, wow, it's amazing, right? And instantly, as soon as I do that, my mindset shifts and my energy shifts, right? It's one little thing. So I think for everybody that's listening out there, that's something you can do today, right? That's something that you can do today, right now, is you can find one thing that's great. You can. There's one thing that's great in your life. It doesn't matter. And when you focus on that and you look at that a little bit, everything else around you is going to change a little bit too.
Welcome to the Elev8 podcast. I'm your host and coach, Tyler Johnson. Thank you for tuning in. If you are a return listener, I'd be grateful for your rating or review. And if you dig this episode, give us a like or share. And now, whether you've tuned in to elevate your mindset, your game, or just your day, you are in the right place. My guest this episode spent 9 years at IMG Academy before moving on to Major League Baseball, where he spent 6 years, 5 of them with the Chicago Cubs, where he was a part of the 2016 World Series Championship. He is now the Director of Performance and Coaching at Limitless Minds. Please welcome to the Elev8 podcast, Joshua Lifrak. Excited to have you. Good morning. How are you?
Thanks so much. Give me 1 second. I have somebody coming in my office. Give me 1 second. What's up? I'm recording a podcast. So is this okay? Bye-bye. Thanks. Okay, perfect. Hey, we're working from home. We're all working from home. Right? This is the way it rolls. This is how it goes.
That's right. Busy. Well, welcome. Excited, I guess, just to start us off and share with our listeners a little bit, kind of how you got into mental skills, and you spent some time at IMG, World Series champion eventually, and then now kind of tell us a little bit more what you're doing now.
Yeah. So thanks. First of all, thanks for having this this podcast, and thanks for having me on. I think, the more that we can get out the word that, mental training is really competitive advantage versus, having to be something that you only do when there's a problem. Right. It's that proactive approach. We've seen it work in sports for me for the last 20 years. It's you see, hey, these guys are actively addressing, these women are actively addressing the competitive advantage they can have by training their mind. And they're having different results than other athletes. They're more consistent, they're more confident, they're more focused. Like all these things happen when you actually have a deliberate intention to train your mind. If you just leave it to default, we're rolling the dice a little bit, right? And that's the whole thing about sports. There's so many things in sports that are just completely out of your control, So the more things that we can put into our control, the better chance we have for better results, right? And that's the whole thing. It's just like one of my late mentors was Trevor Moawad, and I don't know if you've read It Takes What It Takes or Getting to Neutral yet. Two really, if you have not, those are 2 books to go read now. Now, those are your next books. Spectacular stuff. But he always used to talk about, you're training your mind. What are you doing? You're buying more lottery tickets. That's what you're doing. You're going out and you're buying more lottery tickets. If I have 1 lottery ticket and you have 7,000 lottery tickets, guess what? My son's he's 11 years old. He's doing probability and math right now. Yeah. Tyler, you got a way better chance of succeeding with 7,000 tickets than I do with 1 ticket.
Yep.
And that's what it is. It's just adding those lottery tickets. So, okay. So what was your question again?
Yeah, no, love it. No, the importance of it, how you got started into it. I mean, obviously, passionate in these skills, but yeah, what led you into a career of training the mind?
Well, so my story is that I was a collegiate rower at the University of Rhode Island. It was not a D1 sport; it was a club sport, but we practiced 3 to 4 times a day. I mean, it's rowing. We had 2 guys on that team that one guy ended up getting a silver medal in the Olympics in 1996, and another guy was a world champion. Right. Wow. So it was intense training. It was, even though it was a quote unquote club sport, this was world class stuff. And I used to get so nervous before races that I would throw up outside the boat. Now, I don't know what you know about rowing, but calories matter a
Oof,
lot in that
yeah.
sport, right? You are
Yeah.
burning calories, your muscles are firing all the time. So I never had this type of stuff growing up. My father, strangely enough, was an Army psychologist and actually started the Cadet Counseling Center at West Point. But I didn't really actively engage in mental training at all. All right. So I didn't really even think about it. It just was what it was. I was an athlete. I loved being a sport person. I played basketball. I rowed crew, all these things. I loved it. Fast forward to 10 years out of undergrad school, had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. I was waiting tables in New York City, was in the restaurant world for 10 years. And Manhattan's like waiting tables in restaurants there. It's a competitive sport. It
For
really
sure.
is.
Yeah, restauranting
Like,
in New York is competitive.
you got to hustle, man. You got to hustle. You got to hustle all the time there. And it was fun, right? I loved it, and tons of camaraderie, and still have some of my best friends in the world are from that time frame. But it was also, it was taking a toll on my body, right? You're on your feet for 12 hours a day, and you're just running everywhere. So I knew I couldn't keep it up forever. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I didn't really have the vision to see what you could do in that world, right? Like my friends that I waited tables with back then, now they own like 4 or 5 restaurants each, or wine import companies or whatever, right? Yeah. So I just kind of knew I had to go back to school for something, and I didn't know what it was. And I was out on a mountain bike ride and kind of had an epiphany on that mountain bike ride, and it kind of changed everything for me. And I went back and I was like, oh, look, if I change how I'm thinking about something, results can change. Like, that's really what happened in that ride. I won't go into it. I've told the story a million times. So but the thing about it was that, like, hey, I wonder if you could study this. This is like, I'm talking like late 90s now, right? Yeah. And so sports psychology itself wasn't even like, the Soviets did it. But other than that, right? Like, you just didn't do it, like you hadn't even heard of it. I think, where Visit was getting yelled at by people at the Angels, at that point. But other than that, it was like him and Dorfman in baseball. But that, so there wasn't even really a field at that time. And so I looked and I found a couple grad schools. San Diego State, Ithaca College were the 2 that I actually ended up getting into. And I chose Ithaca College because I guess I just have like a death wish. Like, I just like cold weather and like having snow piled on top of me the whole time. So, but that's how I got into it. It was like, I was literally searching. I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. I was an athlete. I went on this bike ride. Things changed in my mind, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I wonder if I can teach this. I wonder if I could study this. And so that started me on my path.
Your path led you to being a World Series champion with the Chicago Cubs. And in an article they wrote about the season in the Team in Time magazine, you had a quote that I really liked. Better humans make better players.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? And I think, I know the Cubs were one of the few that, you guys had this intimate team focused on, bettering the development of just humans, not baseball players. Can you unpack that a little bit and share a little bit with that? Yeah,
no doubt. I think, I learned this at IMG. So, my career path after grad school was I did an internship at IMG. Literally, Dr. Angus Mugford, who was, VP of high performance at the Toronto Blue Jays now, he and I like shared a room. We had bunk beds. It was hilarious. Like, we are. I'm 30 years old and I'm in a bunk bed. And we do this internship. And then, after 10 years of being there, one of the things that we saw was that the athletes who performed the highest levels oftentimes had their stuff off the field wired tight too, right? They had all their stuff together. They were good human beings, right? And those were the ones who excelled at the most. I think about a kid like Dwight Powell, right, who was with the Mavericks for years. I think he just got traded to the Wizards. I'm not sure where he went. But that was a kid, like, he was at our school, and we were like, at IMG, and here he is. He's like, he's not trying to go to Kentucky. He's trying to go to Stanford, right? Like, you could just tell, okay, this is a guy who's going to be successful for a really long period of time because he's got all this stuff he's taking care of, right? He's taking care of his nutrition. He's taking care of his mindset. He's taking care has leadership abilities and how he treats others. He's taking care of the basketball stuff in his body, right? And so here it is, this better human thing, right? This caring about others. That's really what we saw as a facilitator for success on the long term. Now, when I got hired by the Cubs, we were kind of searching a little bit for our identity. That was 2014. We didn't really know who we were. We were the lovable losers, right? That's who we were, right? That's like the winning the World Series. So as we kind of dove into it a little bit more and we started pulling it apart and unpacking it, we went down this road, this concept of, better humans make better Cubs. And what we did was we attached the phrase "that's Cub" to anything that a player did or a person in our organization did that was a little bit above and beyond, right? It was attributed to the field, what they're doing on the field, right? They're running hard to first base. They're hitting the right cutoff man. They're making a key pitch in a tough spot. They're taking an extra base on a sac fly or a deep fly ball to right field or center field or whatever, right? They're doing the right thing within the game. That was going to be Cub. Hey, man, that's Cub. We just called it out. And in addition to that, they go and they volunteer. They go and they, maybe they picked up the dugout after the game was over and there was paper cups everywhere, but they were the ones who stayed there and they picked up, hey, man, that's Cub right there. And we just kind of started instilling this thing to our young players in low A, double A area. And it just kind of started getting pervasive and it just filtered through the entire organization. We learned about it from two sources. New Zealand rugby, right? We had the opportunity to talk to the All Blacks and that was a thing that they said. And it's in that book. What's that? I forget the name.
Legacy.
Legacy, yeah. James Kerr. And then we also learned about it from the San Antonio Spurs. We had a number of conversations with people over there and they just talked to us about, what type of person they look for before they look for the player. And I thought that was, it kind of sparked in our mind who we were going to try and recruit and bring in.
Yeah. Can you talk about, I love how, that's Cub, because if you Google your name and you click images, like one of the first things that comes up is a picture of you that says that's Cub. And so
I'm getting a little weirded out that you're Googling me so much, Tyler. I was feeling like my arms are getting a little goosebumpy earlier if my hair was on it. I guess it was just you stalking me, bro.
I'm trying to do a little research on a fascinating guy. You find out some stuff. But, in kind of research in sports psychology, never got a chance to meet the guy, but at the Cubs, you got to work with, I always call him like one of the godfathers, right? Ken Ravizza. And another guy who I've just always, in the professional ranks since he was with the Rays and probably with the Angels, Madden, and just how much he elevates the care for the human person, the mental, and how that translates into baseball on the field. I think, can you talk a little bit about what it was like working with those two and maybe some of the greatest things you learned from them in those times?
Yeah, so the story is that I get hired in 2014 as the director of the mental skills program. So literally my destination is I'm a front office person, right? Like, yes, I have boots on the ground. Yes, I'm working with all these people, but I'm literally front office. And like, that's what it said on my contract, that I'm front office. So my job was to kind of fill out the organization with mental skills people. 2015, we hired Joe in the off season there. And the first thing he says is, I need Ravizza with me, and so then it was like, I thought maybe Lifrak was going to take care of the major league team. How's that going to work? And as soon as that came up, I was like, we can get Ravizza. It's done. That's a done deal. This is a Hall of Fame person, let alone a Hall of Fame mental skills provider. Yeah, we're getting Kenny. There's no way we win the 2016 World Series, by the way, without Ken. The stuff he did behind the scenes during the playoffs that in itself is a book, and it took courage, it took cojones, like it took a lot, but only a person with his gravitas could have pulled it off. We don't win. I'm serious. Like that. That doesn't happen, right? Without Kenny. Sure. And so for me, it was more like I could just help him understand players a little bit quicker than maybe he would have earlier. Yeah. So it was, obviously like I was his boss in a lot of ways, which was weird, right? But it was more like, hey, Kenny, just go do your thing, man. Just go be you. And then if you need anything, let me know. I'll take care of you. So that's kind of the way it was with our relationship. But yeah, did we have a lot of time to spend together? Did I learn a ton of stuff from him? 100%. Right.
Yeah.
And again, you know, one of my favorite stories that Kenny told us was how he got into the field. So I don't know. Have you ever heard this story about how Kenny actually broke into baseball? So he's friends with like somebody in the Angels organization, right? Or they had gone to Fullerton or something like that. I can't remember what the connection was, but they're like, hey, we'll try you out, right? So here we are, we're at spring training, and you could take the relief pitchers, okay? You're going to take the relief pitchers, and you got one session with them. And if they like it, you're staying. If they don't, you're gone. We're not even gonna entertain this sports psychology thing. So Kenny's like, okay, you know, he's younger at that time or whatever, and he takes them, and they only in the spot they gave him, they didn't give him a theater, they didn't give him an auditorium, he had no freaking whiteboard or PowerPoint or anything like that. They stuck him in a freaking bullpen in the back, like behind this building with like air conditioning units and like a generator and all sorts of crap, like right next to him, right? And so he gathers the guys, and he starts talking to them. And, you know, he tells a story. He was like super nervous about it, and he's talking. And halfway through his talk, the air conditioning unit like kicks in, and it's like super loud. Like you can't even hear it, right? Like you can't even hear anything he's saying. The generator's like shaking. It's like, you know, it's like super loud. And he just keeps going. And he finishes like 10 minutes later. And, you know, they all leave, and he doesn't know how it's going to go. But they keep him on. So it went well. And he's like, awesome, I must have nailed that thing. A couple weeks later, you know, he's talking to the guys again, and he has a relationship with one of the pitchers there. And he asked the pitcher, he's like, you know, what did you like about that first session? And the guy goes, you know what, honestly, I couldn't hear anything you were saying, but you were so locked in, like you didn't even blink when the thing started going off. It was so loud, and you just kept going. You were so focused. I was like, hey, man, maybe I want to learn how to get that focused. So it wasn't even anything he said. It was just what he did. And it like, and how he was being in that moment where there's all this distraction, but he didn't even know what he did. He was unconsciously confident in that moment, right? He didn't even have a clue of how good he was. And he was just so locked in. And I thought that was hilarious, right? Because like we think about Kenny and all this great information he always used to give and all this stuff. And the reason he was even in baseball is because the air conditioner went off. It was really loud, and he was able to stay focused.
Stay focused, and you know, if you're that passionate, and I'm sure as Ken was, like even if you couldn't hear him, you could feel that body language.
Yeah, you can feel Kenny, no doubt, man.
You know,
no doubt.
Well, that's great stories. One thing I kind of was saying, I know the Cubs had, you know, a team of you know, people under you working with mental skills, and I think other major league organizations have kind of adopted that model over the years, where most teams have a small group. Doesn't seem to be that way in the NBA or the NFL. I think the NBA has a little bit more mental skills, a little bit different. NFL, being a former football player, it seems like there's a huge gap when it comes to college football and the NFL. Are there other reasons besides maybe the individualistic kind of ways the game presents itself that baseball's a little bit further ahead maybe when it comes to mental skills training?
Well, I have some I just got to hold on a second here. Yeah. College football is very much incorporated at the top levels.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, Trevor, though, like
Alabama, Florida State, Michigan State,
Georgia,
Michigan, like Georgia, all of these entities, which are highly, they recognize really quickly that they don't just have like a mental skills person. They have mental health. They have psychologists. They have the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Right. They do. I mean, you know, obviously they have the budgets to do it. I mean, Notre Dame, right? You know, Amber Selking there. She did an unbelievable job. Probably is going to go to LSU with Brian Kelly now, right? And so it's like you look at these scenarios, and the organizations that get it, like they understand if they're really committed to winning, they have this in their program. End of story.
Yeah.
Like if your organization, whether it be a business or, you know, a football team or a baseball team or a basketball team, like the organizations that are highly successful, they get it, and they put people in place to train the mind because they know it's a competitive advantage. Right. So I don't agree with you. I don't think.
No. Yeah.
I don't think baseball, like high level teams, do this stuff.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, more of a generality when I say it, when it's like, yeah, I mean, those top programs, you just don't like, I mean, just in a basic, if you search mental skills in NFL offices, there's no one that comes up. Like, it's all secretive. And I mean, when you do it in baseball, you can find, you know, a lot of great people that are doing it. And it seems, I guess in the football world, it comes to too, it's like you've got most programs, hundreds of some college programs with 100 some kids. And there's just, when you look at it as a ratio, there's very little being taught out there, except for those programs
Sure.
that have those buco bucks. I guess my question is more, why are, you know, most people, like you said, the winning programs recognize this as a great advantage. Why are other coaches, programs, sports maybe slower to realize this?
They don't understand it. People are afraid of stuff they don't understand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and also, I'll be honest with you, the confidentiality piece, which at the major league level, at the highest levels, at the that has to have that confidentiality that has to be there, because otherwise you're never gonna get to help the players, unless you are like legitimately just like running visualization sessions and that's all you're doing. Right? You're not gonna even break down the barriers and get people the help they need. So I think that's another piece too. Like coaches and organizations, they want to know everything. And so, you know, it's tough to measure as well, right? Like everything's analytics right now, and hey, can we measure it? Yes. Okay, let's focus on it, right? Versus like this stuff that's a little bit gray, that is a little bit tough to measure. You know, so that's I think those are probably the reasons. I know the NFL has a woman who, I forget her name off the top of my head, but like she runs all of the mental health for all of the teams in the NFL. So the mental health piece, I think, is real, right? And I know the NBA and the NFL are attuned to that.
Sure.
And they're working to help out with it. And I think that in a lot of ways is a gateway to mental skills training right now. Like I couldn't do the mental health piece, and I never tried to. And I was so happy that the Cubs gave us the opportunity to have, you know, a mental health practitioner at every single level, right? They really did. Like we had every single level covered, from the Dominican Republic all the way through, you know, AAA baseball, and then obviously in the major leagues, covered by an individual mental health person that they could go to confidentiality. We never even knew if they used them, right? Because that's the way it was supposed to be for mental health. On the mental skills aspect, you know, that's a little bit more of the training piece, but there still has to be that confidentiality there. So if something does come up and they want to open up about stuff, you can address it.
No doubt. Can you talk a little bit about like maybe when you're in the professional baseball, that kind of the amount of time or how much time were athletes, you know, spending on this, you know, on a average basis?
Well, you know, the whole key was that we were trying to help players form habits, right? And so that was the whole key. Like, it's not about like meeting with the mental skills coach. It was always about, hey, are you applying the tools and the skills to train your mind? And do you know what those are? So for us, I mean, it was always like, you know, there was an instructs camp and at the end of the season, and you would give them all the information about what to do and how to do it. You would help them apply it. So you educate, application, and then you support them through the process. Now, as you go through the ranks and they're continuing to do that, you're monitoring that. You're you know, that's where the surveys come in, and you're asking anonymously, how many times a week are you visualizing? Every day. Boom, cool, right? You know, we're looking at 70% of the people are now visualizing every day. Great, the program's working. Right? Oh, look, we want to institute meditation and get guys meditating a little bit and understanding, you know, mindfulness training. Okay, well, how do they do that? You know, well, here's a bunch of different options to that. How often are they doing it? You survey them again. I'm doing it 5 times a week. Great, we know that's working, right? And we see the numbers. So, you know, that's kind of how we approached it.
Cool. Very cool. With the mindfulness, kind of a very topical, kind of across sports. How is that often received by some new people? And, you know, after implementation, where there's some, you know, what kind of impacts did you see that create for performers?
Yeah, so that it's really interesting, because I always talk about mindfulness and meditation. Like, a lot of people want to go straight to that. Oh, look at all the research, it does great stuff. But I think there's an emotional maturity that needs to occur before you can enter that. It's almost like a prerequisite to mindfulness training in a lot of ways. So like, if you just roll it out to everybody, you're going to get like 3 people that show up. And these are dudes that, you know, are straight up from California or Colorado, right? Like out of the gate.
That's right.
Right? That's who they are, right? They've been exposed to it. You know, their mom's a hippie. It's all good, right? So, you know, you're going to have like a smattering of people. But if you kind of like roll it out a little bit differently, right? And maybe don't call it meditation out of the gate. Maybe you call it, you know, you just call it mind training. And you got to have the guys sit for 5 minutes, you know, a day, or you have them before they even go in the stretch circle, you know, taking a 2-minute meditation, or you encourage them during the national anthem to just close their eyes and like really hear all the notes, right? Like all that stuff is mindfulness training. And again, it's like a little bit of a gateway to getting into that, you know, what Dr. Amishi Jha talks about from the University of Miami, 10 to 12 minutes a day, 5 days a week. You know, that's the real training. You do that 10 to 12 minutes a day, 5 days a week, you know, your brain is going to get stronger. The neural pathways will strengthen in terms of being able to notice things, being able to step outside of yourself, being able to be more focused when things aren't going your way or when it's pressure. Like all that stuff happens from that minimal time frame. So, you know, those little pieces into it can get people regulated and attuned to it. And then when you have the coaches buying in and maybe doing it themselves, oof, that's when it really takes off.
Yeah. Can you kind of touch on that real quickly about how, like, I mean, obviously, you know, Matt and managing, from my impression of what you're saying, every stakeholder in the organization was aligned with kind of some of the mental skills. And I think
100%.
You see it sometimes where it gets compartmentalized with the athletes and it just won't reach its organizational potential if it's not involving all the stakeholders that are stakeholders.
Yeah, I mean, we would do sessions with the front office, Tyler. Like it was
awesome.
Embedded, bro. I mean, it was everywhere and everything. Like that's just this is how you thought as a Cub. Period.
I love it.
That was it. Like it wasn't like an option. It wasn't like, you know. Now here's the deal. Like we were very open to, again, the human being and understanding them and getting their perspectives and being growth mindset and open minded and all that stuff. But there was a certain way that you thought as a Cub, you know, right up until 2019. That's when it ended. It just kind of fell apart. Hired some bad people. It is what it is. But, you know, it's just, I wouldn't say bad people, had a different point of view. They had a different point of view from what we were doing and maybe didn't understand it. So that's when it kind of got all blown up. But, you know, like it changes, right? And that's it, right? Change is inevitable. Growth is optional, right? And so it's like you sit there and you go, like, did I grow from that? I probably didn't. Right. I was probably stubborn, and it's probably on me for the reason that I'm not, that it's, you know, a little bit on me that I was like digging my heels in because I believe so much in what we were doing versus maybe looking at different opportunities. So maybe I was the bad person, right? In all seriousness, right? No, in all seriousness, like you look back on it and you go, I mean, bad, good, those are judgments and you really don't want to do judgments, but could I have been more effective? Could I have been a little bit more open to different things? Sure. Right. Yeah. But I was stubborn and I believed fully in what we were doing. So am I upset about that? No. I would do it the same way a little bit again, but maybe I would have changed how I went about it, you know, but I believed in it.
Well, I appreciate the candid reflection on that as well. One other thing I always wanted to ask is there a mental skill you love to teach? I know maybe you can talk a little bit about what you're doing now with Limitless Minds, and is there something that gets you excited to teach this to athletes or business people or whatever it may be?
Well, I've just seen, you know, you see so much growth from organizations that buy into this stuff. You know, like what we do at Limitless Minds is it's not like, you know, it's not just getting up there and giving a keynote. That's pretty transactional, right? Yeah. Like it's fine. You can do that. And certainly there'll be some education that goes along with that and people will get inspired and they'll understand stuff. But what we believe in is transformation, right? So we've taken the model and you know, you engage with Limitless Minds, and it's not just for like, hey, Lifrak up on a stage, you know, talking about the Cubs. It is, you know, a 6 month to 12 months engagement where it's learning every month, you know, digitally, and then getting coached by some of the world's best coaches, you know, who have business acumen, who have business backgrounds, who have military backgrounds, who have, you know, sales backgrounds, who have professional athletics backgrounds. And these people are coming in to help teach all the stuff that Trevor believed in throughout his life. And so what gets me juiced about it is literally the people. Like, that's it. That's why we're in this business. We're here to, impact people. That's it, right? And help them perform better longer. That's really what we do. A health and wellness digital company is what we really are. And so, for me, what gets me juiced up is really taking care of others. That's it. We show up to a session in coaching, and it's never about, hey, we're going to educate you on this. It's like, how can we take care of the audience that we're in front of? And when you take care of the people that are in front of you, and when you take care of your audience, guess what happens? They buy into what you're saying. They feel better. They listen more. And then they're going to ask great questions. I mean, that's basically how it rolls out. So, I mean, that's, I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's what gets me juiced. There isn't one specific skill, without a doubt. It's like, I just love teaching this stuff, period.
No, it's very, very good. One question we always like to ask our guests, how do you define or view success? What is success?
I remember reading this a number of years ago. There was Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you ever heard of Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Work Week, which, by the way, like, I love that book and I hate that book, right?
Right,
it's like this almost unattainable goal, right? The 4-hour work, but it isn't. Like, you can still do. You can automate all that stuff, and I'm sure there's people out there crushing it.
And then I don't know anybody that is that efficient and that entrepreneurial that can get their work week down to 4 hours. The next thing they do is start another company and add another 4.
Yeah.
Like that's what those people do. Like, so that was my conundrum, is like, the most motivated, driven entrepreneur I know, as soon as they can get that business to 4, they go start another one.
Yeah, 100%, dude. 100%. That's
right.
exactly what happens.
They're too driven. They don't want to sit on a beach. They want to work.
Yeah, they do. But in that book, he talked about this is perfect. This is a perfect segue, because he said the opposite of happiness isn't sadness. The opposite of happiness is boredom. So for me, like, success right now, I mean, we have very clear metrics in terms of what we're doing with Limitless Minds, and how many people we're looking to impact a year, and how many businesses, and the things that are the results of what we do with businesses. Client retention, client retention, employee retention,
sure.
employee engagement, happiness. Like, all those things come out of the teaching of neutral thinking. We've also seen bottom lines for these companies go up. We've seen, their level of engagement go through the roof. So it's really kind of cool to see those types of things. So that's certainly one modicum of success.
Yeah.
But for me, success is like literally making an impact with people and helping them, apply these tools and skills. I had an email the other day. We had done a session with a woman, and we were talking about adversity tolerance, right? That's one of the topics we talk about. And she was in the group. There's about 20 people in the group, executives and managers and things like that.
Yeah.
And she wrote that she had been always scared of driving, right? She's a mother of 2, and she doesn't drive. She didn't have a driver's license. And because of the session that we had, and because of recognizing what adversity really is, i.e. challenge and opportunity, she enrolled in a driving course. And she wrote us that. Like, that's success. Are you kidding me? Right? Like, we're impacting this woman's life. This isn't just like, oh, I hit a ground ball to third base and now I'm mad. It's like, no, this is like huge stuff, So that for me is that just fills me up,
Love it. What, in kind of your work, when you work with some businesses or go into those environments, what are maybe 1 or 2 of the cultural or managing faux pas that you catch on to quickly on why they can quickly maybe have more success with their people, but just not understanding a gap that's in between them and their employees?
Yeah, I think there's, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care, right? It's Positive Coaching Alliance 101 right there, right?
Sure.
So that's certainly part of it. But I think a big thing that happens is people think you can like build relationships by being sarcastic and being funny and making fun of others and stuff like that. That stuff like kills culture like that. Number one, because everybody's got to kind of laugh at it, but inside they're getting crushed. So now psychological safety is like down, right? what I've seen from great organizations, I'll switch this around a little bit, is they catch each other winning all the time, right? They catch each other winning all the time. Like those little things that people
That's
are
Cub. That's
doing.
Cub.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's Cub. Little things that people do that might to the naked eye not seem like a big deal, but those little butterfly wings are flapping and there's tornadoes happening in Texas, right? Like that kind of stuff matters so much. And when you become a culture of catching each other winning, you're going to win big things, right? Limitless Minds, we have a gratitude on our Slack. We have a gratitude channel. So every person in our company every day starts off by saying what they're grateful for. Like I said, a gratitude channel. So it's really like that type of thing. Just that's small, right? It's a small thing to do, but here we are. We're practicing what we preach. And think about it. Like I get to read all this stuff. Like I get to read, all these posts of like great stuff that's happening in the world. Like,
yeah,
how awesome
it's good news.
What kind of
yeah,
exactly.
That's a news feed I'm here for.
Exactly, right? No doubt, right? And so that's the type of stuff that that matters, right? And it's not forced either. It's like literally not forced at all. So that's what's kind of cool is I've seen that.
When explain with one more last question, since you brought up the topic of gratitude, I'm a big like to wake up every day and just journal a few gratitude things. Been doing it for a while.
What were yours today?
Today, let me. Sometimes I get busy. Forgot we wrote. Here we go. Podcasts. If I can find my page here.
Love this. Put Tyler on the spot, bro. Make him sweat.
Grateful for my new start with the organization Positive Coaching Alliance. I'm thankful for the new relationships and people that I've got to meet yesterday. And I'm grateful for the great workout and great rest I had this morning and last night. And I'm thankful for the time to gather today before I speed up and attack the next process.
Nice. That's awesome.
Just kind of random thing, but I usually try to at least have 3 different thoughts, and sometimes it's hard for me to read them because they're scribbled, but at least they're out.
Yeah, and that's such an important thing, Steve. Is like you writing stuff down, like just getting it out of your head and putting it out there. Like that's awesome. And then guess what else? When you have a journal there, you go back to it. You can just flip through that stuff and just like, wow.
So I was working with some kids, and I had a girl call me out. She's like, "You do that every day?" And I go, "Give me a date in the last month," and I flip to the book, and that awesome. One I wish I were recorded because I said great things about my wife. So I was like, they thought I was probably just like playing up to it. But that
she said February 14th, right?
right. Oh man, that was a good one. No, and she, and then I read it, and I go, that was the next point, as it kind of shared, is that when you at least do it in a journal, you can do it however it is your way. But if I'm having a bad day, I go look at past days. I flip back, and it's like, man, like also when you fill up a book and you see a gratitude entry for every day, it's really hard to be like, well, where was the bad day? Yeah. Like it makes you really like, I mean, there are some, right? But it starts to where your light goes, energy flows, right? So
it's very Colin Henderson of you, right there.
Yeah, the silver-tongued Colin Henderson, episodes, I think 20 and 60. Go check them out. Well, that was that's a great compliment. I'm gonna tell Colin I got mistaken for you with my silver tongue today, buddy. But greatly appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing some things, Joshua. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate everything you do, and I'll link up your social media. I'll link up Limitless Minds. Go check out the work they're doing. I think the work you guys are doing is like, it's going to change business, I think, in the next several years. And I think,
I mean, that's the whole thing is we recognize right now we're business to business. Like it's coming though. Like our goal is not small. Like our mantra is think big, go far. Right. Mm-hmm. So when you think big, it's a little bit more than just, hey, let's just take care of this business or that business. It's like, we want to get it to the consumer, right? That's coming. So just note that, our goal is really, worldwide, right? It's not just going to be businesses in America. It's going to be businesses globally. It's going to be individuals globally. So there's a lot coming. Just keep your eyes peeled. You'll see. There's a bunch coming up. So it's going to be fun. But I want to say, I don't know if the podcast listeners, right? If you're listening to this, it's different than if you're watching. I don't know if this is going on YouTube or wherever it's going, but one of the things that was really, really cool about the last 5 minutes of our conversation is as soon as we started talking about gratitude, Tyler's face just lit up. I mean, bro, you were just smiling. You were happy. You know, it was just like, but that's what happens, right? Justin Sua, a good friend of mine. I don't know if you've had Justin on yet. I'm sure you will sooner or later. But Sua and I, one time we had to co-present on different coasts. He was presenting to a group in California. I was presenting to a group in DC, and they wanted the same presentation. So Justin and I had to put our heads together and create it, which was, by the way, awesome. And I love Sua, by the way, if you're listening to this, is just the best. Like, that dude is baller. I love him. I love everything he stands for and how he goes about his business is great. But we got to collaborate. And one of the games that we came up with, and it probably was more him than me, but we were going to have people share in the audience, and our audiences respectively, I think he had 1,200 people and I had like 800 people. And our audiences, we were just going to have them share, you know, one great thing that happened to them in the last 24 hours. And it was like, you know, they're going to turn to each other and share it, right? Like, whoever's your partner next to you. And I'm doing the presentation, and I had never done this in an audience before. I think he had before. But we do that, and like the room exploded. Like, I had never seen anything like it, Tyler. Like, just the joy and the presence and the noise and the enthusiasm in the room. Like, the roof almost came off. It was amazing. And all it was people focusing on something good. Yeah. Right? Now, here's the deal, right? With our mindsets and things like that, there are going to be things that aren't good. And to go from really bad to really good, that's probably like, it's almost like going from forward to reverse in your car. You're going to blow out your transmission, right? Like, that's not what we're saying. What I'm saying is that when we can focus on little things in our lives that bring us joy, when we can focus on those, like the breeze in the trees. I always look for the breeze in the trees. It always makes me, like, wind, by the way, for whatever reason, like, it's so mind blowing to me. Like, I don't understand it. I don't understand where wind comes from. It just comes, right? There's no start point. There's no end point. It's just there. And I love it. And so I'll just sit there and I'll look at the breeze and the trees and I'll just be like, wow, that's amazing, right? And instantly, as soon as I do that, my mindset shifts and my energy shifts, right? It's one little thing. So I think for everybody that's listening out there, you know, that's something you can do today, right? That's something that you can do today, right now, is you can find one thing that's great. You can. There's one thing that's great in your life. It doesn't matter. And when you focus on that and you look at that a little bit, everything else around you is going to change a little bit too.
Thank you for tuning in and all the way to the end. Appreciate that. If something this episode caught your ear, is useful or unique, I would love if you would share it, or, you know, a thumbs up is always encouraging as well. If you want to come back and check out more videos, smash that subscribe button, ring that bell for notifications, and we'd love to have you back. Have a great day, and go elevate others.